Prompt engineering is a very important topic when dealing with language models. In this video, we are going to understand what is prompt and what is prompt engineering. Inside prompt engineering, we are going to talk about different prompt types like system prompt, instruction prompt, and user prompt. We are also going to talk about the usage of system prompt when implementing prompt engineering based use cases. We are also going to talk about the overall process when building a use case using prompt engineering. And finally, we will be also implementing a use case using prompt engineering. Our use case will be a digital assistant bot for library. This bot will be used by user to find and locate books in a library. Okay, so let's begin this journey. Before exploring the nuances of prompt engineering, let us first clarify the concept of a prompt. To explain what is prompt, I have taken a real life analogy. Imagine you are sitting in a coffee shop with a friend who is known for his vast knowledge on a wide array of topics from literature to science, much like an LLM. Now, you are curious about a particular topic, say the best way to grow tomatoes. In this scenario, your question to your friend would be, how do I grow tomatoes successfully in my backyard? So this serves as the prompt. This question is nothing but prompt in the context of LLM. Your friend's response, which might include tips on soil preparation, sunlight requirements, and watering schedules, is similar to the output generated by an LLM in response to the prompt it receives. So just as the quality and clarity of your question can influence the relevance and depth of your friend's advice, in NLP, the way a prompt is constructed can significantly impact the quality and usefulness of the information provided by your language model. A well-crafted prompt leads to more accurate, detailed, and contextually appropriate responses, leveraging the model's training to fulfill the specific request or task at hand. So we understood what is prompt. Let us try to understand prompt engineering. Think about a librarian in a library. This librarian is highly knowledgeable as far as this library is concerned. Like, he is aware of the books available in this library. He is aware about the current bestseller around the globe. He's also aware about all-time favorite books on various topics. So the librarian's expertise and the library books are similar to the capabilities and knowledge embedded within an LLM. Now suppose you are a visitor to this library and you simply tell the librarian, please provide me a book to read. Here, you leave a lot open to interpretations. The librarian might suggest anything, and it might not meet your expectations or reading preferences. In this case, your request or input was vague request. Now, suppose you say, suggest me some motivational books from latest bestsellers. Now, this detailed request guides the librarian much more effectively, making it likely that the outcome will be closer to what you desire. This is a detailed and a specific request. In this analogy, the act of carefully specifying your request is similar to prompt engineering. Just as providing clear, detailed instructions to the librarian leads to a book that meets your expectations, crafting a well-considered prompt for an LLM helps in generating responses that are more aligned with your informational needs or creative goals. This is what prompt engineering helps us achieve through different prompt engineering techniques, which we are going to discuss now. Moving further in the prompt engineering concepts, let us try to understand different prompt types. There are two types of prompts, system prompt and user prompt. System prompt is also called instruction prompt. Let us try to understand these prompt types again with our same real life analogy involving a librarian and a library visitor. In this scene, the librarian standing behind the information desk with a library manual in hand. This library manual might contain details like the behavior, like how librarian is supposed to greet the readers in the library. This manual could also contain the knowledge sources like the details of the books this library has and how to locate a book in this library. This library manual could also contain the inventory details like how many copies are available for each books, etc. This manual or guidelines of this librarian symbolizes the system or instruction prompt in context of LLM. Now consider the user prompt as a visitor's request to the librarian. When a visitor comes to the library, they ask the librarian for information on a specific subject, like I need books on gardening in temperature climates, or can you help me find research papers on renewable energy? So the librarian uses their knowledge to find and suggest the most relevant resources. In the case of AI, the user prompt is what you as a user input into the system to get a response. The quality and specificity of your question or request, which is the user prompt, will determine the relevance and usefulness of the information, the response you receive. Just as a librarian can provide more accurate and helpful resources if he is provided a good library manual or a help book followed by a very clear user requests, an AI language model gives better responses when it is instructed to follow some instruction with additional context and a clear and specific user prompt. So with that analogy, now we can say that in the context of large language model and generative AI, a system or instruction prompt refers to the initial setup or pre-formulated input in terms of instructions and additional information called context provided to the model to guide its response or behavior in a specific way for user query. Say you provide the instruction as answer the user question from the provided context. And then you provide the additional context as this, like Paddy loves animal. He has 2 cats and 1 dog at home. Now, when user asks the question like this, like how many cats Paddy has at home, the LLM will generate a response like this, like Paddy has 2 cats at home. Here, the LLM was instructed to answer this user question from the provided context and not from its own memory. So you see here, LLM is following the instruction to answer user query from the provided context and not using its own knowledge base. So let us talk about some key characteristics of system prompt. Number 1, predefined context or instructions. So the system prompt usually contains a set of instructions or a context that outlines how the model should interpret subsequent user inputs. It sets the stage for the interaction, specifying the tone, scope, or domain of the conversation. Then guidance for response generation. So system prompts guide the LLM in generating responses that are relevant, accurate, and within a desired framework. For example, a system prompt might instruct the model to behave as a friendly virtual assistant, a tutor in a specific subject, or a character from a story. System prompt influences the model behavior. So by defining the initial state or role of the model, the system prompt can influence how the model interacts with the user. It helps in steering the conversation in a particular direction or ensuring that the responses stay within certain boundaries, such as professionalism or creativity. And finally, enhancing user experience. So a well-crafted system prompt can significantly enhance the user experience by making interactions more focused, efficient, and relevant to the user's needs. Okay, so far we talked about why prompt engineering, what is prompt, and we also talked about the fundamentals of prompt engineering. Let us apply our knowledge to create a digital assistant bot. We will use the same library scenario as our foundation. Our next step is to develop a digital assistant tailored for this library, designed to guide users in discovering and locating the books within its collection. Before we implement our use case, we need to understand that prompting is an iterative process. That means when you have your use case requirements, you need to translate your requirement into prompts, which includes system or instruction prompts. Then the system prompts, along with the user prompt and with additional context if needed, will be ingested to the generative model. Then generative model will produce some results. These results will be verified against the user requirement. If this response or the results are good enough, then fine. Else, we follow this path, which is the iterative process. So we modify our prompt. The prompt modification could be in the system prompt or so-called instruction prompt, or the data or the in-context data which we are passing to the model. So we modify our prompts. Then the same user query is further ingested. Model produces the results. The results are verified. And if you are happy with your results, good enough. Else, you again follow this path. Now, with this in mind, let us try to implement our use case where we are going to implement a digital assistant for our library. So let us start defining our prompt because our requirement is clear. So the next step is to define our prompt. So through system prompt, we will pass two information. Number one, instruction. So through these instructions, we are trying to set the guidance for our digital assistant bot. We are saying that you are a digital assistant in a library, an automated service to assist users about books available in this library. You first greet the user in very polite way, then ask how you can help them. When requested book is not available, collect the user phone number and tell them that we will call back when this book is available. Use the below library data while assisting user for their query. So this is the instruction which we are configuring as part of system prompt or instruction prompt. Then we are ingesting additional context through system prompt. Here additional context is a small library database which contains details like book name, author name, and the location of the book in the library, which is book shelf number. So as part of this library database, which we are passing as an additional context inside the system or instruction prompt, so this library database includes book name, author name, location, which is the book shelf number. So here you see the name of the book, the author, and this is the book shelf where this book is located in the library. This initial setting should ensure the basic functionality of generative model. And when user asks, help me locate this book, drive, then the digital assistant should respond like, please head to bookshelf B2 to find the book, because as part of this database, this book drive is available in the bookshelf B2. Okay, so we are all set. Let us see the actual code and how our digital assistant for this library is responding. So this is the Jupyter notebook hosted on Google Colab. I will provide the link in the description. You can access this Jupyter notebook and you can just play around it. So this is the prompt which we just designed. Now we start with installing the needed library. Now for this use case, I'm installing OpenAI because I'm going to use OpenAI models. So therefore, I'm installing the OpenAI libraries. Once the library is installed, we will import the needed library. So here, OpenAI library, we will just import. Then you need to set your API key. So you need to generate your OpenAI API key and configure it here. And then this is where our system or instruction prompt is defined. So the prompt which we defined earlier is just placed here. Let us see how this prompt looks like. So this is exactly what we designed, that you are a digital assistant in a library, an automated service to assist user about books available in this library. And use the, okay, so there is a typo. Use the below library data while assisting user for their query. And in the library data, we are providing the book name, the author name, and the location, which is self number. We are also providing an instruction that when a requested book is not available, collect the user phone number and tell them that we will call back when this book is available. Very good. This is our helper function. The helper function will accept user prompt and provide response based on the system prompt or instruction prompt. So this message is nothing but the list where we are going to pass the system prompt and user prompt to the LLM through this chat completion API from OpenAI. We are using GPT 3.5 turbo model, and we are setting the temperature as 0.2. And then this API will provide us the response. So our messages will be ingested to this GPT 3.5 turbo model, and then this model will return the response. So this helper function is going to return the response of that model. Okay, this is the list which we have created messages. In this list, we are going to keep on accommodating or appending our interactions, like user interactions. So we're starting with appending the system prompt. So the system prompt which we defined here is what we are going to append in our message list. And then this is a small while loop which I have just written. This while loop is basically going to collect the user input, and based on the user input, it is going to append the messages list. So in the messages list earlier we had the system prompt. Now we are going to append the user prompt, which is the user input, and then we are going to call our helper function where we're going to pass these messages, and then whatever the response we are going to get will be printed. So let us initialize this helper function. Let us initialize this message list, and let us run this while loop. Good. So it is asking me a question. So say, please suggest some motivational books. Oops, there are some typo. Motivational books. So let us ask this question and let us see how our digital assistant is responding. Great. So assistant is saying, sure, here are some motivational books available in our library. So it is utilizing this library database, which was provided as additional context, and using this library data, it is responding to the user that these are the motivational books which are available in the library. So now say user asks about like the location of this book. So say about this book. So say, where can I find this book? Provide the book name. Perfect. So assistant is responding saying that this book is located in bookshelf D1. Now let us verify if this is as per the provided database. So yes, so this book as per the database is available in bookshelf D1, and this is what exactly the bot also responded to the user. So very good. So our digital assistant for the library is working fine. Okay, so we just implemented our digital assistant bot for library, where we instructed our bot to behave in a certain way through system prompt or instruction prompt. We also provided the library database through system and instruction prompt. And using that library database, the additional context and the instructions, our digital assistant bot is able to interact with the user and able to help user in finding and locating books in this library. So well done. Thank you.